Hi guys, Jamie here from JB Motion. In today's video, we're going to be making this. Now, when I say this, I mean actually we're going to be making the watch. Now, you could look at this as me trying to be like, hey, watch my video on how to model and rig and animate a hand. And it kind of is that, I suppose, but it's also a good kind of a reason for you guys to learn some stuff about hand modeling. So if you do want the hand, if you want to figure out how to make the hand yourselves, do watch the tutorial up in the link above there. And if you don't want to do that, then just get in touch and we'll figure something out with the with getting you that file. So we're going to be making again the watch, the hand. If you want it, you got it. So let's get started on this. Here we go. Going to grab a cylinder. And let's change the orientation to +Z, and we can just scale this down. I'm using these little yellow circles, something like that. And we want to scale this up as well to something like, I don't know, something like that. Okay, so now you might argue that this is a very large kind of start for a watch. So this is going to be the watch face, and yeah, it looks big, but we're just going to be looking at it like this, so it doesn't really matter how far back it goes. So that's fine. So let's go into our object tab now, hit NB on your keyboard so we can check out our lines, and let's increase the rotation segments up so this is nice and smooth. Something like maybe 90 would be good. Height segments, we don't need any of those, so just get rid of those. And now what we can do is let's turn on caps. Go into your caps tab, turn on fillet, and we can increase the radius there a nice bit. Maybe we'll go up to 20 on that for the radius. Gonna have to increase the segments as well. I might bring it back down to about 15, should be fine. And segments, leave it at 6. Okay, maybe even 20 on the radius actually. And then bring the segments up to 8. Okay, cool. So let's make this cylinder editable. So we can do that by hitting C on our keyboard, and that'll make this editable. So now we can go into polygon mode, and we can hit UL on our keyboard to go into the loop selection tool. Just grab this selection, and now we want to hit D for extrude, and we're going to extrude inwards. So I'm just clicking and dragging left. If you click and drag right, it extrudes outwards. Just clicking and dragging left, and that is going to extrude inwards. So we want to go in deep enough that it's going to leave space for when we bring in our hand. So that looks fine. Should fit a hand in there. Maybe go back a little bit more. That should be good. Cool. Okay, so now we need to set up the numbers of this clock. So we're going to have numbers or whatever, you know, little markers that represent the numbers of the clock. Keep calling it a clock. It's a watch, but it doesn't matter because, you know, they all tell the time. So, don't know what that means, but let's continue. So what we want to do is round these edges here, because these are quite sharp compared to these ones, which are nice and round. So let's grab this whole loop. So go into edge mode first of all, hit UL on your keyboard, and then we can just grab that loop. Hit MS to grab your bevel tool, and we can just click and drag on that. So we need to add some segments or subdivisions, so this will round out. So I'm going to go for 4 subdivisions on that, and that is looking pretty good. Okay, so create a cube, and we can call this number marks or whatever they're called. I'm sure that clock makers or watchmakers have a name for these. Anybody who knows what it is, comment in the comments below, please. Okay, so let's just scale this down. And we can put this into a cloner. So select the object, hold down Alt, and then we can just click on this cloner icon here. That'll automatically add the number marks as a child, or put it in as a child of the cloner. So now we can set the cloner mode here in the object tab, set the cloner mode to radial. Go into the transform tab and let's just set the pitch here to 90. I think it's the pitch we need to set. I'm just going to move it out a bit so we can see what we're doing. Yeah, that's right. And then go into the coordinates tab and do the same. Now we can go back into the object tab and just bring up the radius of this. We can actually just bring back our cloner as well. Kind of position it up. So obviously these number markings won't do. So we need to make these smaller. So we'll do that now. Something like that looks good. And increase the radius in our cloner in our object tab. And we have to increase the count as well to 12. So something like that isn't too bad. Maybe bring the cloner back a little bit so that they're not protruding out too much. Okay, cool. So now what we can do is we can set up the straps of our watch. So we can create a cube. We'll just name this. We're not actually naming our objects at all. So I don't know why I'm starting now, but better late than never. So let's scale this down now a bit. We're going to scale it down along the Z, bring it up along the Y as well. We'll just move it up, along the Y. Scale it a bit more down. And let us now, well, we can put this into a symmetry object. We can make it a child of a symmetry object. So make sure it's selected. Go over here and hold down your mouse click to bring up this little drop down, and then we can, before we release Alt, just select symmetry object. Now it automatically adds the straps object as a child of the symmetry object. So now let's grab our straps object and just move it. Let's see. Okay, so right now it's kind of pointing in the wrong direction, so we could just grab our symmetry object, hit R on our keyboard, and just rotate that 90 degrees. If we bring that down, then don't have to be too precise about it. Something like that, and then just move it up a little bit. So we have our straps. We'll bring those forward as well. And not too much. We don't want to see them sticking out of the face of the watch. Cool. So we just need our little dial here that allows us to set the time on the watch. So we can use an oil tank for this. Oil tank. I haven't used these very often, but just laughing at the name of it for whatever reason. Weird sense of humor, I suppose. Make sure you're in object mode, and we're going to move this over, scale it down, right down, so it looks like it knows what it's doing, and we can just move this forward as well, and push it in. Okay. Not too much. We can even just reduce the height of that. Oh, no, not that. This. Oh, no, not that. Okay, we're going to have to go into our properties here. Select the oil tank. Object height is here. Just bring that down a bit and then move it in. Cool. Okay, so that's it modeled. I suppose we can bring in our hand now. And here it is. I'm just going to copy that, go back into, I'm going to do a save as well because, you know, I'm always going on about saving and then I never do it, so I'm going to do it now. We call this hands of time. And then we can paste in the hand that we just copied from the scene. And where is it? Okay, so let's just go into the null here, go into the coordinates tab. Everything is zeroed out. So let's just position this so it looks like it's in the right place for the hand of the clock. I want to scale this down as well. So it's already been scaled. I'm going to go 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, too small, 0.2, 0.2, and 0.2. Possibly too big. We'll move it anyway. Yeah, it's a little bit too big. So I might just scale up my whole watch. I'm just going to select all my objects here, press Alt G to put them all into a null, call this watch. Now I can just scale this up, which is a lot easier than scaling the hand, which is rigged and animated and all that, as you can see. So I'm just going to get the scale of this watch looking good, I suppose. I think it's a bit too deep. Well, it definitely is a bit too deep. So I want to move all these. I want to move the, well, I'll go into my right view first of all, grab my, now this is what happens when you don't name your objects. Go into this, I'm just going to rename this to watch main, because it's the main part of the watch, I suppose. And I'm going to go into point mode, grab my rectangle selection tool, just grab all these points, and then back into perspective, and we'll move these back a bit so it's not as deep. It doesn't have to be really. The hand can be brought forward a bit, something like that. Move it up. We might have to just scale this hand, scale this watch up a bit more. Yeah, something like that. NA on your keyboard to get rid of your lines. Now we'll go back to our hand, which isn't centered really on our watch, so we just need to move it over a little bit, even though it should be, to be honest. I'm just going to jump into front view. No, it's not at all. It's very far off center actually. What we can do now is just hold down control and duplicate this, so we have a hand 0.1. Hit R on our keyboards, and then we can just rotate this around, and we can even just move this up a little bit, so it is going to be intersecting. We can fix that with another one of these oil tanks, so we just copy this down, holding down control and clicking and dragging. We'll call this watch center, and we can put this just where our hands are, just to hide that intersection. If we go into our coordinates tab, and we can probably zero out the Y and leave the X and Z as is. Still a bit big looking, but it's okay. I'll leave it as is, scale it down a little bit maybe, and bring it out a bit more. Something like that. So now let's create a camera and make it active. And let's go into our coordinates tab and just set the rotation, zero out the rotation there. And we can zero out the X and the Y and leave the Z as is. We can zoom in a little bit actually on our Z. Something like that. Okay, so that's our model set up. Now we already have our hands in there, so we just need to create some materials for our watch, light up our scene. So we can go ahead and set up our lighting now. So first of all, we can grab a sky object, and we can create a new material, or not do that, go into your content browser and search HDRI. I've already done that, and we're going to grab this Sky01 material. Now this has the HDRI image in it in the luminance channel. Here it is. So if we apply that to our sky object, and if we now go into render settings, turn on global illumination, and do a render to picture viewer on that, you'll see that we're getting some lighting from our HDRI image and some shadows as well, which is nice. Okay, so I don't want to see the background of that. I don't want to see the HDRI image, or the sky object, I should say. So right click on it and go to render tags and add a compositing tag. Let's turn off scene by camera. Now we are going to need a couple of extra lights in here because it's a bit dark at the moment. So let's do that now. If we just go into our top view and zoom out, let's grab a light and we can just kind of move this over to the left of our watch, somewhere like here, we'll say. And we can turn on shadows for this, area shadows, and we can bring the intensity. We'll leave the intensity as is for now. We might turn it down in a minute. Now let's hover over this axis and hold down Control, click and drag to duplicate. And now we have a key and we have this new light, which can be the fill. So this doesn't need shadows. We can turn those off, and we can set the intensity down to something like 60% on that. And let's go into our right view now. We need to select both our fill and key lights, our key and our fill lights, and bring those up to about there, we'll say. So now we can go into perspective, and we'll just do a render to picture viewer on this, see what it's looking like. Okay, so it's not looking too bad. I think my hands are a bit off center, so I'm going to try and just kind of, it looks like the distance between the tip of the finger here and the rim of the watch is not the same as it is here, so I'll try and fix that now. I'll just grab my hand object, move that up a little bit and over a tad, and I'll grab my hand one object and I'll just move that, try and make the distances a bit more similar, as close to the same as I can get them anyway. Cool. Okay, so let's turn on our lines, and if you have a look at our watch center, I was going to say we needed to turn up the segments, but it's actually okay. We can turn up the segments in watch center a little bit. Like, we also can turn off height segments. So select your watch center object, go into the object tab and turn down the height segments on that. We can bring up the rotation segments as well to something like this, and let's go back into our camera. Okay, so we have our lighting set up. Now we can go and create some materials. So I'll turn on my interactive render region so we can see what we're doing as we're doing it. Let's bring up the quality of that as well. And let's first of all create the material for the rim of our watch. We'll say the main part of the watch. Now I'm going to go for gold on this, so I'm going to create a new material. I'll call this gold main, and I'm going to apply this now to the main object, the main watch object. Watch main, the watch main object, close enough. And I'm just going into object mode, so I'm not going to see all the points there. And now we can go into reflectance, and let's turn off default specular. Let's add in a CGX and set the attenuation to metal. Now we can go down to layer Fresnel and set the Fresnel to conductor and the preset set to gold. Okay, cool. So that's good for the watch main object, but we don't want the face to also be gold, the face of the watch. So let's create a new material and open that up. We can call this face, and we need to make a selection. So let's turn off our interactive render region. Let's close this down for now. Make sure your watch main object is selected. Go into polygon mode and let's hit UL on our keyboard to go into loop selection, and then we can just grab loops. So let's grab this loop, and now we can apply this face material directly onto our selection. That'll create a selection tag for us and set up this material on it. So let's turn back on our interactive render region again. Just might as well just bring this up a little bit as well, so we can get an idea of what the top half of this is looking like. So let's go into our face material and we can go into the reflectance channel. Let's turn off default specular and add in a Beckman on this. Set the attenuation to additive and just bring, let's have a look at this is looking like. We can bring the reflection strength down. Specular we can bring down as well. I actually liked it a bit more when the reflection strength was a bit higher, so I'm going to go a bit higher on that. I'm also going to apply my gold material to the number marks cloner as well. Now I am saving time with that, but you could just call it laziness, but it is time saving, I swear. Time saving. Haha, hands of time. So that's not looking too bad. We also want to get in a little logo here, because usually watches have their logo kind of just at the bottom of the face. So I'm going to grab, let's turn off this interactive render region. Let's grab a text spline object, or a text spline, and we can call this whatever you want to write in. I'm just going to go for JB Motion on my one, and I'm going to set the align here to, where is my computer's just gone mad again. Set that to middle, set the align to middle, and bring down the height on that to about 20, I suppose. Let's well, find it first because it's hiding there behind our watch. So let's just make sure that object mode is selected. Go into the move tool, just move that forward. And I'm going to place this around here. So we need to extrude this spline. So let's just make sure it is selected. Hold down Alt and then just click on your extrude icon there. And then that will extrude the spline. We can bring down the offset to 1. And if we just zoom in and move this back so that it's barely sticking out. We kind of want to look like this is printed on as opposed to stick it out, so it's not going to be noticeable. This jut out is not going to be noticeable at all once we're zoomed out where our camera is. Might even zoom out the camera a little bit more. Just jump into the coordinates tab of the camera and just zoom out a bit more on that, just so we can see a bit more of our strap. And let's do a render to picture viewer on this now and see what it's looking like. So it's very jagged. We haven't set up our anti-aliasing settings yet, but that will be all nice and smooth once we do. Let's focus now on the dial here. So let's close this down and let's have a look at it first, because it is out of position. So we need to move this back. We also need to remove the height segments because it's just a waste. We don't need them. And we can bring down the height to this a little bit and just kind of push it in so it's not sticking out as much as it was. Let's go back into our camera now, and maybe it's pushed in a bit too much, so I'll bring it back out. Now let's focus on the material for this dial. I'm just going to call it a dial. Just create a new material and open it up. Let's also just apply it to our dial object and turn back on our interactive render region. So we don't need to render all of this anymore. We're just focusing in on the dial. So I want to create a bit of displacement on this, because, you know, to kind of replicate the grooves you'd see along the dials of watches. So let's go into our displacement channel, turn that on, and we're going to grab, for this, we're going to grab a gradient shader. So let's do that now and open it up and select both of the knots. Hold down shift to select the two of them and just twiddle that little drop down menu there and set the interpolation to broken computer. No, set it to step, and now we don't have any smooth transitions or smooth gradient, gradual change of color. So we'll be able to get our grooves. We just need more of these knots. So what we can do is right click here and go to double knots. That'll give us double the amount of knots. We can do that again, and we can do it again, and we can do it again. And then we can distribute the knots. So nothing's happening because we have to go back to the top level of the displacement channel and turn on sub-polygon displacement and set round geometry to on as well. And that's going to, round geometry is just going to do a better job of what we're doing. Do you know what? I actually think I might like it without round geometry, to be honest. Looks better. So I'm going to leave it off, funnily enough, as it goes. And right now it's obviously a bit too high, so let's bring down the height of that to about 2 centimeters. Let's try round geometry again. Yeah, now I kind of like round geometry again. No, I still like round geometry turned off as well. I might go down to about 1 on the height as well. Yeah, something like that. Reflectance, then we are going to turn on some reflectance. We're going to add a Beckman, or no, we're going to add a CGX. Set the attenuation again to metal, and go to layer Fresnel, and we'll probably go for conductor again and gold again and see what that looks like. I don't know if I like it, to be honest. Maybe if we bring up the roughness. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like the color of it. I'm not sure if I like it also being kind of a goldish color. So I'm just going to Control Z a couple of times to undo the changes I made. I'll just set this to be the attenuation to be additive. And now I'll go into my color channel and I'll just make it a bit darker. So it's going to kind of look a bit kind of a bit more like silver, I suppose. Something like that. I'll leave that as is. So now if I turn off my interactive render region and do a render to picture viewer on that, so that's not looking too bad. Okay. So next we're going to focus on the straps. What we can do first of all is just turn on a couple of effects. So global illuminations turn on. We're just going to turn on ambient occlusion to get our contact shadows. And I'm just going to do a quick compare of this render with it turned off and this one with it turned on. Just see if it's worth the extra render time. It's only an extra 2 seconds, so I think it is kind of worth it, to be honest. I will go into my render settings and go into the ambient occlusion effect here and just bring the maximum ray length down to 30 centimeters, and let's have a look at what that has done for us. So I can just do a flick back and forth to compare. So you can see that in our previous render, the ambient occlusion seemed to be coming out pretty far. If you look at the hand kind of producing a contact shadow on the face. It was coming out pretty far, so just reducing the ray length down to 30 centimeters has kind of taken that out, and it's just kind of brightened up the whole object as well. Okay, anti-aliasing badly needs to be set up, so we'll do that now. Back into render settings, anti-aliasing, set it to best, leave it at 4x4, and we'll do a compare on those two as well. This is with it not set up, this is with it set up, so obviously render times are going to be increased. I might go a bit lighter in the color with the JB Motion text as well. So anti-alias and not set up, anti-alias and set up. So big difference there. JB Motion, we're going to turn the color. I'm going to turn the color of that down. What is that? That doesn't even have a material. Let's create one, and we'll call this logo. Bring the color. I'll make it a bit white and see what it looks like. Put this onto the extrude. Now we haven't been naming our objects much at all, but we don't have that many of them, so yeah, I don't know if I like that. I don't want it to be seen by ambient occlusion either. I don't want to see any contact shadows, because right now you can see that and it looks like it is protruding out, so I don't want that. So I'm going to right click on this, go to render tags, and grab a compositing tag and turn off seen by ambient occlusion. So now we shouldn't be getting any of those contact shadows where between our face and the JB Motion. We might want to make the actual face of the clock a bit whiter as well, because right now it's looking, I don't know, it's looking a bit dark. So yeah, now we don't have any of those contact shadows that I was talking about. We do have some shadows. We should push it in a bit more, I suppose. So we'll do that now. We'll push that in a little bit more, something like that, and that should be good to go. So we want to brighten up our face a bit, so we'll do that, make that a bit whiter. And now if we focus in on our straps, so we're not going to be creating a material for our straps, because there's a really nice one. Well, I think it's nice anyway. If you just go into your content browser, type in fabric and grab this flannel. Now there are loads of them in here. You might say, oh, I like this one, or you might not like any of them, but anyway, this one I thought looks pretty cool on the straps, so I'm gonna apply it to the symmetry object and do a render to picture viewer on this, see what it looks like. So I think we need to make the JB Motion a bit darker so that it's going to be noticeable against this now brightened up face. So it's rendering quite slowly as well, so 25 seconds a frame, you know, you could say it's high enough. Will I just turn off ambient occlusion and see as well, if I go back into my render settings, go to options, turn the reflection depth down to 2 as well. Let's see, because I just want to bring down the render time on this without kind of making it look too noticeable that I was skimping on settings. So I missed the ambient occlusion, so we are going to have to bring it back. So let's do that. Now we got 16 seconds in this render with ambient occlusion turned off and reflection depth turned down to 2. So let's see if we can get anything taken out of this 25 seconds just by having the reflection depth turned down. So it's not looking too good. Yeah, we got a few seconds off it, so that's not too bad, better than nothing. And what you could do as well to make this strap, to make the straps look a little bit more interesting, is go into the material and go into the reflectance channel, and we can go into layers and add a Beckman onto it, and just bring down everything quite low. Set the attenuation to additive, and we need to set the blending mode here to add. So just a little bit of reflection. Well, that is a lot, isn't it? A little bit of reflection and a little bit of roughness. And just have a look and see if you like that or not. And if not, you can just undo those changes. Oh, I forgot to do the JB motion as well, so I'll do that now. I want to go into the logo material and I want to darken it. Something like that should be good. And let's have a look. So this is the render it just did there that we set up. This is with and without the reflection. Do you know what? It actually doesn't look good at all. It hardly makes any difference. I thought it might, but it doesn't, to be honest. So I might just turn that off. And I think that's it, guys. I hope you guys learned a lot, as always. Please do hit that like button and subscribe, guys. It does help out. Leave a comment below just to say hello, or just say, like, maybe some suggestions for the next tutorial, whatever it might be. It's good to get in touch, and I do love to hear from you guys that are even just learning a little bit from these tutorials. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.